January 2026. Picture this. The freezing wind is just whipping through the opposing stadium. There's this brutal 15-degree chill, literally numbing the fingers of the traveling Houston faithful. And they're just watching as the final seconds cruelly tick away. The deafening roar of that hostile crowd starts to fade, the stadium lights dim, and for the Houston Texans, a chilling, almost suffocating silence takes over. The season is over. An ugly, abrupt, and deeply painful playoff exit against a bitter AFC rival has suddenly cast a colossal shadow over what was universally supposed to be a golden era. Well, today we are going to dive deep into this, because what is happening right now in Houston, it isn't just a standard run-of-the-mill offseason. No way. It is an explosive, high-stakes chess match. We are talking about the kind of offseason that doesn't just define a single solitary year. It defines an entire decade for a professional franchise. We're looking at a front office that is currently staring down the barrel of legacy-defining decisions, with the sheer weight of an incredibly desperate city resting squarely on their shoulders.
Everything changed in a matter of seconds. The final whistle blew, and suddenly the entire narrative flipped. That honeymoon phase, the one where everyone was just happy they were competitive, it's completely gone. Which brings us to the ultimate question. What actually happens when the dust settles? Because look, when the raw adrenaline of the season fades away, the harsh, unforgiving light of the NFL business model turns on. The Texans are no longer the plucky underdogs playing with house money, surprising the league on any given Sunday. Scratch that. They are now a team burdened by staggering expectations, extremely heavy contracts, and severe immediate consequences. The dust is settling right now, and it's revealing a tremendously intricate puzzle that general manager Nick Caserio and head coach D'Amico Ryans have to solve, and they have to solve it immediately.
Before we dissect the exact granular financial and strategic realities facing this organization, I want to welcome you to NFL Nexus. We don't just skim the surface here, guys. We break down the brutal realities of this league, going straight from the front office all the way down to the turf. If you appreciate this level of deep dive, documentary-style analysis, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and comment on what you thought. Let us know how you think the Texans should handle this absolute powder keg of a situation. And seriously support the channel by becoming a channel member, because truly understanding the modern NFL requires us to look much, much deeper than the daily headlines.
Chapter 1. The Houston Quarterback Paradox.
So the Texans front office is currently operating under immense, practically suffocating pressure. And here's the thing, they aren't trying to build a team from scratch anymore. They are trying to perfect a high-performance machine that just stalled out on the biggest stage imaginable. If we slowly and meticulously trace C.J. Stroud's trajectory, you can really start to understand this underlying tension. It starts with an absolute explosion, right? His rookie season. He doesn't just play well, he outright secures the Offensive Rookie of the Year trophy. We are talking about over 4,000 passing yards and a historic touchdown-to-interception ratio that literally shattered rookie records. It was an undeniable, historic success. But then, fast forward through those playoff appearances, and we crash violently into January 2026. The ugly playoff exit. The violent collision of these two realities, league-shattering early success crashing head-on into a deeply disappointing recent failure, has birthed a massive, colossal dilemma. How do you take a team that is so unbelievably close to the summit, yet suddenly looks vulnerable, and push them over the edge? It has completely set the stage for the 2026 season to be the absolute most pivotal year of Stroud's professional life.
Chapter 2. Stroud's $60 million question.
We have to shift the focus from the emotional weight of the field to the cold, hard, mathematical reality of the front office. Because in the National Football League, your potential and your past accolades mean absolutely nothing if the math doesn't perfectly align with the salary cap. $60 million. Just let that exact annual figure sink in for a second. $60 million per year. That is the impending neighborhood for a top-tier quarterback extension in today's market. This puts him in the exact same stratosphere as a Joe Burrow or a Trevor Lawrence. But the obsessive question that is echoing through the halls in Houston right now is this. Does Stroud's track record truly validate making him one of the highest-paid single individuals in the history of the sport? Think about it. When you hand a player $60 million a year, you are telling the rest of your roster that severe, painful sacrifices must be made elsewhere. You are mathematically wiping out the entire middle class of your 53-man roster. You are declaring, without a shadow of a doubt, that he is the system.
And honestly, the whole debate comes down to this exact tier separation. Is he a top 10 quarterback, or is he just top 15? Now, I know that sounds like an arbitrary debate, maybe just a talking point for daytime sports radio, right? But I assure you, In the hyper-specific, ruthless details of NFL front office valuation, it is everything. That specific 5-spot difference in rankings completely dictates the impending negotiation table. If he's top 10, unquestioned, then that $60 million figure is a painful but absolutely necessary reality to keep your Super Bowl window pried open. But if he's merely top 15, if he's just a beneficiary of DeMeco Ryans' elite defensive culture, a great offensive coordinator, and a stellar supporting cast, then a $60 million contract becomes an absolute anchor. It drowns the franchise's flexibility for years. This is the razor's edge that Houston is walking right now.
Chapter 3. The General Manager's Verdict. To truly understand this dilemma, we actually need to bring in a highly revealing external perspective. Enter Ran Carthon, the general manager of the Tennessee Titans. Carthon recently made an incredibly fascinating appearance on CBS Sports, and his words sent absolute shockwaves through the analytical community. Why? Because the Titans are a bitter AFC South divisional rival. When a rival executive speaks candidly and somewhat defensively about your franchise quarterback, you sit up and listen. Carthon isn't just a talking head. He is a man who intimately knows the ruthless nature of roster construction in this specific division. Let's look at this quote together. I don't think that it's a make-it-or-break-it year for C.J. Stroud. I think he has been good enough. He's had them in the playoffs. Let's break this down. Make it or break it. That is the exact label the media has universally slapped onto Stroud's shoulders for 2026. Yet here is a rival executive publicly removing it. Why on earth would he do that? He points to the baseline. He has been good enough. He has kept them in the playoff conversation for 3 straight years. Carthon is effectively establishing the floor here, and the floor is remarkably safe.
But Carthon didn't stop there. He followed it up with this absolutely critical second part. He said, the consistent thing for all these organizations that are winning right now is that you have consistency at the quarterback position and the head coach position. This brilliantly illustrates the absolute, unforgiving necessity of stability in today's NFL. You look around the league and the turnover is violently rapid. Just look at franchises like the Carolina Panthers or the Cleveland Browns over the last decade. Teams plunge into utter, irrecoverable chaos by constantly churning through quarterbacks and head coaches in search of some magical quick fix. Carthon is basically arguing that the sheer act of having the exact same competent quarterback and the exact same competent head coach year after year is an immense competitive advantage in and of itself. Stability is a weapon, and if you have it, you do not disrupt it casually.
And this is where the narrative gets truly theatrical. From 2017 to 2022, for 5 solid years, Ran Carthon and Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans were in the trenches together with the San Francisco 49ers. They shared the same building, they built the exact same defensive identity, they learned under the exact same regime of general manager John Lynch and head coach Kyle Shanahan. You really have to obsess over this connection, because in the NFL, philosophies are deeply, deeply contagious. They learn the blueprint of stability together out there in California. It is heavily implied that Carthon's defense of Stroud, his massive emphasis on consistency over a panicked make-or-break mentality, secretly and perfectly echoes the exact thought process happening right now behind closed doors in Houston. Ryans and Carthon cut their teeth in the same system. They both know that blowing up a stable foundation is nothing short of franchise suicide.
Chapter 4. The Davis Mills Trade Chip.
As we pivot the lens away from the superstar starter, we enter a high-stakes, truly agonizing chess match involving the backup quarterback. If Stroud's contract is the towering skyscraper of this franchise's future, Davis Mills is the structural foundation happening quietly in the shadows. Because look, a championship roster isn't just about its stars, it is entirely about its safety nets. And the situation surrounding Houston's QB2 has officially reached a boiling point. $8.1 million. That is the exact 2026 salary cap hit for Davis Mills. For a clear-cut backup quarterback, an $8.1 million hit is a glaring, massive number on Nick Caserio's ledger. But why is it specifically that high? It's due to the NFL's proved performance escalator. Because Mills, a former Day 3 draft pick, played a massive percentage of snaps early in his career, his 4th-year salary automatically skyrocketed to the level of a restricted free agent tender. And this forces the general manager to evaluate his trade options immediately. You cannot simply carry an $8 million insurance policy into a season without agonizing over whether those precious resources could be deployed to sign a starting-caliber defensive piece.
To understand why Caserio hasn't just pulled the trigger on a trade yet, you have to look at the brutal efficiency of Mills' 3-game stint. Do you remember Stroud's extended concussion absence? Davis Mills had to step straight into the fire. And the results? A flawless 3-0 record, nearly 240 passing yards per game, a highly efficient 59.5% completion rate, 5 touchdowns to just 1 single interception. He was a steady, calculated, totally surgical game manager when the team's entire playoff life was literally hanging by a thread. This specific stretch proves exactly why Mills is simultaneously a highly valuable asset and a terribly complex trade chip. How do you voluntarily part with the man who just proved on national television that he can single-handedly save your season when disaster strikes?
But complicating matters is the current, almost absurd NFL landscape. If you want to trade Mills, you obviously need a buyer. But look at the market right now. Teams that logically might need a bridge quarterback have already secured their short-term plans. The New York Jets, they have Geno Smith leading the way. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they've brought in Aaron Rodgers. Even teams like the Las Vegas Raiders or the Denver Broncos have already committed to their rookies or bridge veterans. The music has stopped, and the musical chairs of the NFL quarterback market are virtually full. This reality is aggressively tanking Mills' immediate market value. A team just won't surrender a premium asset for a backup when they feel their immediate bridge plan is already completely locked into place.
So, Caserio is left staring at an agonizing ultimatum. Do you hold Davis Mills as premium insurance, just swallowing that $8.1 million cap hit? Or do you trade him for late-day draft capital, perhaps a 6th or 7th round pick? When you really weigh it out, a late-day 3 kick is a statistical ghost. Historically speaking, less than 15% of day 3 draft picks ever become regular starters in the NFL. It's a lottery ticket with an incredibly low probability of hitting. Compare that to the deep, impenetrable security of a backup who intimately knows your playbook, who has established chemistry with your personnel, and who has definitively proven he can win in your system. The logical scale tips heavily toward holding on to the insurance, even if it's incredibly expensive.
Chapter 5. The Ultimate Cost of Winning. Let's zoom out to the macro level here. We've looked at the math, we've analyzed the stats, and we've weighed the logic. But in the NFL, logic is often disrupted by pure ruthlessness. Nick Caserio has a heavily documented history of making shocking, surprise moves. Shipping out a tenured, highly respected veteran like Titus Howard when absolutely no one saw it coming is proof of that. That history tells us that nothing is truly off the table. But if the Texans want to build a truly terrifying powerhouse, the path forward seems to be coalescing into what we can call the Houston blueprint. First, pay C.J. Stroud his massive valuation, betting that his top-tier talent is the absolute engine of the franchise. Second, retain Davis Mills as elite premium insurance, fully accepting the heavy financial burden just to guarantee the season doesn't completely collapse on a single twisted ankle. And finally, through these interlocked, deeply connected quarterback decisions, you solidify your AFC dominance. These two distinct decisions don't just affect this year. They dictate the entire future structure of the franchise, and by extension, the entire balance of power in the National Football League.
But at the end of the day, the math is completely inescapable. Between a potential historic extension for Stroud and an $8 million cap hit for his backup, the quarterback room alone is eating a staggering portion of the team's lifeblood. So I leave you with this striking, completely unresolved ultimatum. If absolute stability costs nearly $70 million, can this front office truly afford the price of a dynasty?